Hey guys, so just straight off before I get into this video, if you can hear like a whirring in the background, I've got my desktop fan just on my table next to my laptop, but I've also got my like air humidifier fan thing going on down there, so that's quite loud. I do apologise about that. But yeah, today I wanted to try my hand at telling a story time because I love watching them. I'm bored, there's no internet, and I just want to talk to somebody, and apparently that somebody is going to be myself to a camera until this actually eventually reaches you guys when I have internet. So but yeah, I wanted to try my hand at story time. Obviously you guys know that I'm dating Kimberly. We are getting on super well. I didn't think I'd ever end up actually dating her, but yeah, we've known each other for 8 years and we were friends all the way through school and all the way through college. So yeah, but there were times within our friendship, obviously, that we've had major falling outs, like major, and that's mainly for one reason, or at least one of the worst ones we had was because somebody decided to get in between our friendship at the time. And I'm going to name this person Zara. That's not her actual name, but I'm just gonna give her like a fake name. Gotta hydrate. But yeah, so yeah, we're gonna name this person Zara. And things were fine. Me and Kim were like the best of friends, so, you know, everything was fine. Even like when, because a lot of people didn't really approve of mine and Kim's friendship. My parents didn't, the teachers didn't, and quite a lot of classmates didn't approve of our friendship either. And I think that's because they realised that when I was younger I was actually very impressionable, so a lot of people's moods actually rubbed off on me, and Kim had, well, still has, depression, and so a lot of the things that she used to come out with when she was in school were quite morbid because she had no other way of expressing those emotions at the time, and I saw straight past that. I saw her for her, but I think everybody was just worried for me and my sake because they knew how impressionable I was from a young age. So yeah, and so I was friends with her regardless, because I don't listen to people. But yeah, we would sit in all of the same classes and we'd be hanging out at breaks, and you know, we'd always be eating lunch together and sneaking off into the corridors when we know we should be outside because you're not supposed to be in the buildings during break time and all of that nonsense. Yeah, and then eventually this new girl, well, it wasn't a new girl, she was newer to the school, but like she'd been there for quite some time before even approaching us. But yeah, this girl named Sarah, she came over to us, and she was like, oh hey, and like we ended up talking. She seemed quite nice, and we were like, yeah, sure, we'll let you into like our friend group because, you know, we know what it's like to be the outcasts. So we let her in, and sooner or later we were all hanging out, talking, getting on like a house on fire, and she even ends up slowly introducing herself and building up the courage to come over to like the main friend circle, because me and Kim had like we ended up having a bunch of friends that always hang out by like the benches, and it was like our bench, you know. If anybody else sat by our bench, like, move. Because that's just the way it was in school. Petty really. But yeah, she ended up slowly making her way over to the benches, and everything was good, and we were all hanging out, and you know, it was fine. And one day Kim ended up being pulled out, I think, of the classroom, because we brought in maths. Every lesson a different small group of like maybe 5 people at most would be taken out so that they could have some more like close learning. So that like obviously it's not quite a one-to-one because obviously there are 5 people, but like it's more, you get more interaction with the teacher than you would in a classroom of 30. So if you're struggling with any particular subjects, you can go through it in a smaller group to understand it better. So yeah, she'd been pulled out with that group, so I was just sat by myself, and Zara came over and she sat next to me. and so everything was fine. We were getting on quite well, and then she just started bopping me with this plastic bottle, and like similar to one of these. It didn't hurt at all, so I just started doing it back. You know, we were just bopping each other with these like plastic bottles, and this is the sort of shit that like can cause an argument in school apparently, because I don't know what happened, but like she was having a pissy day anyway because she got in trouble with the teachers. She was always getting in trouble with the teachers because she has a bit of a gob on her. But yeah, she ended up having a bad morning anyway, and I think at some point she just got like fed up and wanted the last hit, and I wasn't giving it to her, and we were just going back and forth, and ended up pissing her off. And I don't know what I said, because I ended up saying something. I don't know what it was now, because this was years ago, but it pissed her off. And then she was like, do you want to go? We can fight after school. Do you want to go? Do you want to go? Do you want to go? And I just thought that she was mucking around, you know, because, you know, it's like, oh yeah, do you want to go? Do you want to go? Like banter, you know, because that's kind of like the usual banter in school. And I was like, yeah, let's have a go. Yeah, I do want to fight you, obviously. Like, obviously sarcasm intended. I think she knew that I was being sarcastic. And she was like, fine, after school, behind the bike sheds. And that was like, behind the bike sheds where all the fights happened. But it was also where like all the bunk ups and all the people that were smoking cigarettes when they shouldn't be smoking cigarettes, and all of the people dealing drugs that I don't know how the fuck they got hold of drugs in school, but that's what they were doing, and hanging out with like older blokes from like college, kind of when they were like 15. I don't understand. But anyway, all of the like the shenanigans that went on always happened behind the bike sheds, and we realised this, and she ended up pulling me behind the maths block instead. So, like straight after class, she ended up like just pulling me out, leading me to the behind the maths block. I was like, right, you good? And then, I kid you not, she just started on me. She was like starting to lunge for me. She was just trying to go. She was trying to go. So me being me, I just hold her by the shoulders, like flat palms, just straight on the shoulders, because I was always brought up that violence was never the answer. Like, you should only ever be violent if you really have to in self-defense, because, you know, violence is never the answer. So I was just holding her by the shoulders, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to for much longer. And I'm not fat shaming. I am not fat shaming when I say this, but she was a heavier weighted girl, and there was obviously more weight to be trying to hold back. And I have weak joints, so I could feel like my arms were beginning to buckle. So she ended up coming for me, and she booted me in the stomach, and it winded me. When I say I could not breathe, I was held over. I was bunched over in pain, like I could not breathe. And then she started trying to come for me again, but like punches this time, and she was yanking my hair, and it was a mess. So I did once. I kicked her in the shin. Not like I didn't boot her or anything, because no, you don't boot people. But like, I just kicked her out of self-defense. I didn't even think about it, I just did it. And then she ended up booting me again, which was like, I was like, I shouldn't have really kicked her, but and then I was held over, and this teacher came just across, and obviously they never actually found out that I actually kicked her back, which is quite funny, but they knew that obviously she'd booted me in the stomach, so that was fun. And then she ended up being taken away. I think she was put into isolation for like a week, but I was surprised that I didn't get in trouble too, because you know how usually the school system is so fucked up that like even though you were acting in self-defense, you're the one that gets put in detention and the other one gets let off scot-free for some reason. But yeah, but they didn't find out that it was me. They just went for her, because obviously the amount of damage that she did to me, and I struggled to like stand straight after that for a while. But yeah, she was put in isolation for a week, and for those of you that don't know what isolation is, it's kind of like a detention atmosphere, like, but that's how you're going to spend your entire school day and then your time after school as well. And that's what it was like for her, like detention conditions for a week. So yeah, that was fun. And I thought that everything was fine after that, because she just left me well the fuck alone. And she didn't she didn't talk to us after that. She didn't even talk to Kim. Like, me and Kim were still sound, and everything was fine, or so we thought. It came to a couple of weeks later, and she obviously realised how close me and Kim were. And I think that she wanted to try and break that up, to try and get back at me. And obviously at the time, Kim was also quite impressionable. I don't mean that in a mean way, but me and Kim were both very impressionable, and I would consider us vulnerable because of our mental health. Still are quite vulnerable because of mental health. But yeah, so she ended up spinning like an entire tale. I don't even know what the tale was, but whatever it was enough to make Kim turn against me. There were all sorts. All I know that she said is she's saying to Kim that apparently I was spouting off a load of shit about Kim, and how I didn't want to be friends with her anymore, and how I didn't like her. I'm just going to close my door, otherwise the cat will come in. 1 second. But yeah, she was spouting off a load of BS about me, about alleged stuff I'd been saying about Kim, which obviously wasn't true. Because I like Kim. And it got to the point where Kim literally like turned against me. She believed these lies that Sarah was telling. And I had 2 other friends at the time. What am I gonna name them? Oh god. I'm gonna name one Becky and one Annie. We're gonna name them Becky and Annie. So yeah, Becky and Annie were hanging out with me more at the time because obviously they knew the trouble that I was going through with Kim, and yeah, so I was hanging out with them. And then one time in PE, we were all like obviously in the changing rooms, half naked, getting changed ready for our PE class, right? And she comes in, she storms in. She's like, she must have been in this cubicle because obviously her and Sarah were sharing a cubicle, and I've been booted out of the cubicle that I usually go in because they were in it, so I was self-conscious changing in front of everybody else kind of thing. They lurch out, or she lurches out. Sarah just ends up watching from the back, but Kim lurches out towards me, and I kid you not, she starts like trying to scrap. And I'm like, girl, can we not do this here, please? Like, we're half naked. And yeah, everybody in the changing room, half naked, in their underwear, and they're shouting, fight, 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 fight. And like, they were just expecting this entire like showdown to go down while we were in our knickers and our bras. Like, what the fuck? But I don't know. And I did not want to hurt her. I did not once lay a hand on her. And she didn't really hurt me either. Well, she did, but like, she didn't. But yeah, I just held her by the shoulders the entire time. I was just in shock. I was shocked because obviously at the time we were the best of mates. So like, to have her suddenly turn on me and be aggressive to this degree, I was like, oh my god, no. So, but yeah, the worst she did was like try and like tug my hair, you know, like the typical cat fight. And I was trying to like keep her at bay, but obviously as I was holding her and she was yanking my hair, I was like going with it. And Becky and Annie come into the room, and they were dressed, and Becky was known for like being like the tough one that will separate a fight by getting involved. So she ended up splitting us both out, and she ended up kind of not like flinging, but kind of like it's almost like a push. It kind of I don't know how it was like a blur at this point, but somehow she had like managed to like whip her over there into the corner on a bench, and like she was basically like just supervising her. She was and she was like, stop. And so she did, and then I quickly got dressed while like everybody was just staring at me getting dressed, and they were like looking at me, and they were looking at Kim, and they were looking at me, and they were looking at Kim. So yeah, it was quite funny actually, but not at the time, but it is now. So yeah, they were all just staring at me, getting dressed, and Kim was like she was pissed off. And then Annie ended up leading me out by the hand, and I think I didn't do the PE session that time. I needed to chill out. I just, you know, physical altercations and confrontations just aren't my thing. Like, I can defend myself if I have to, but I don't want to have to, because I hate the idea of hurting anybody. I wouldn't hurt a fly, I really wouldn't. As I said, in both these scenarios, I was just holding them by the shoulders. Zara, the bigger girl, she obviously went for me, and I could not have defended myself in any other way because my elbows were beginning to buckle, and she had winded me several occasions, so I felt it necessary, without thinking, to kick her in the shin. But yeah, we ended up talking it out. Like, we were mad at each other. We didn't talk for like a week, I think. It was like, and then afterwards, I actually made the first move, I think. And I said, Kim, why did you do that? And then she was like, well, Zara has been saying all this shit about you. Like, you've been saying all this whack behind my back. Like, what do you expect me to do? And I was like, no. Kim, I love you. Like, I wouldn't do that to you. We've been best friends since the beginning of school. What makes you think I'd say all that shit behind you? I mean, realistically, out of the pair of us, who do you trust more, me or Zara? And then she actually stopped and thought about it, and she's like, I've been played, haven't I? I was like, yeah, you have. And then, like, she ended up going off at Zara. Like, she was not having it. But yeah, it's fair to say that after that she ended up leaving us both alone. I think at one point she ended up, in the future, she tried stealing stuff out of our bags, but they did end up getting returned. But yeah, that was basically the last altercation we ever had with her. We were not friends with her afterwards. We did not speak to her afterwards. And yeah, so that was today's story time. So I mean, oh no, there was one time that we did try to defend her after that, even though we didn't like her, everybody was taking the piss out of her. This is gonna be grim. But I know it's a story time, and in a story time you like all the grim details and the juicy bits, so I'm gonna tell you. Prepare to puke. If you're eating, put the food down. If you're drinking, put the drink down, okay? Like, just mentally prepare yourself. Apparently, there was a video going around of her. I say apparently, I don't know, I never saw it for myself because I didn't have social media, but apparently a lot of other people in the school have seen it. And it was of her, and she was pleasuring herself with a Kit Kat Chunky. So, I assumed it was a lie, because why would you do that with a Kit Kat Chunky? It's grim. But like, no judgment here. If you finger yourself with chocolate, you know. We did end up defending her for a short while before we found out it was actually true. And then we kind of just remembered all the shit that she'd done to us, and we kind of felt like she deserved it. I mean, no person deserves to get all that backlash, but at the same time we were petty back then, and we're just like, nah, you can deal with this yourself. And then that is literally the last time we ever heard from her. I think she ended up moving schools towards the end, like in year 10 or year 11. I don't remember ever seeing her again after like year 9, I think. I might be wrong, but yeah, that was today's story time. I hope you found it juicy. If you want more story times, then feel free to let me know, and I can do that. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!